Hey everyone, in this video I will be covering hands and feet, and we're just going to be doing very simple breakdowns of the hand and the feet and do some poses as well. So just to make it simple for myself, I have my reference pictures on my phone and I'm just going to be using that as reference. You guys also will have this reference sheet in your downloadable resources, so go ahead and use those if you want to follow along with me. So let's first go on with hands. Now, when it comes to your hands, it's good to understand the your basic shapes in your hand. So let's first go up with your palm up. First, when you have your palm up, this is basically just, if you can simplify it, this is basically just a square that's kind of rounded off. So you can see that this has a little bit of a dip. Oh, sorry, this has a little bit of incline, and then there's a dip going along for the other fingers. So that's sort of like a almost kind of pentagonal shape, although I shouldn't really call it pentagonal. But anyways, then you have these three muscles here. You have one on the top, then you have one on around the pinky, and they have one for the thumb. Now, of course, there's many other muscles inside the middle that we can't really see very much, but these are the main ones that you mostly can see when you have hand poses. And here we have our palm side down. And of course, everybody is a little bit different. But if you notice, when it comes to the palm, it's the same thing. We have a little bit of an incline, and then we have a decline down here. And then if it's easier for you guys, you have, let me show my ring a bit more. You have your palm, and then you have your middle finger. They're about the same size. So that will be a good marker of exactly how big your hand should be in relation to the fingers. So anyways, let's just go ahead and get started on drawing these. So when it comes to drawing these hands, we will, of course, want to start off with a box. I'm starting with the incline, decline, and then the box here. If you guys can't see that, it's right there. I can also zoom in if you want. So here we have our hand. We have our upper muscle up here. Then we have the pinky up here. And basically the hands are basically the same, they're just reversed. So if I were to draw this is my left hand, the right hand would just be the same, it would just be flipped over. And then here we have our thumb muscle, and that creates the palm. If you want to draw the wrist along with it as well, go ahead. So now we can go ahead and measure between the palm and the middle finger. So if the palm is this big, the middle finger should be around, let's see, about up to here. So it may look long at first, but once you put in the other fingers, then it should be fine. For the thumb, what I like to do is I like to first, kind of finish this off first. Then what I like to do is I would like to, kind of draw on the bone here. And then the tip of the finger. So as you can see, just by adding the tip of the finger and as well as the joint, it becomes a nice little thumb. So now let's go ahead and add in, let me zoom out once more. Whoops, that's zooming in, come on. So now once we have our measurements in place, we can go ahead and just draw in a finger box, which is just a guideline of how we want to group in the box in the fingers. So notice that the middle finger is more up at the top. Basically, most of the fingers will always go towards the middle finger. And yeah, so let's go ahead and just draw a brief skeleton of it. This is where the middle finger will be placed. Here's where the index finger will be placed. And if you look at your own hand, everybody's hand is different. For me, it's a little bit shorter than the middle finger. Generally it is. The fourth finger is just a little bit taller than the index finger. And then we have the pinky. So once we have that all marked out, we can basically just finish these off as little rectangles first, and then we can round them out. And notice that we have a little bit of webbing. So if you go to connect the fingers, make sure that you have a little bit of a curve in the middle. And generally fingers taper, so it starts thick and then it goes thin. . basically your hand. When it comes to the joint, I would just divide them by 3. The top joint is definitely the shortest, I would say, and then the second one is just right in the middle. So now let's go ahead and draw the palm up version, a palm down version. Same thing. We have our box. And then we have our thumb area. This sticks out a little bit, and this kind of rounds out onto the wrist. Once again, we have our little joint. And then we have our fingertip. Now we can go ahead and I feel like I will have to shorten the palm side up here, so let's adjust that real quick. Now we're going to measure up to the middle finger, so let's take our palm measurement and I just kind of lift it up roughly. It's about up to here. Let's kind of add the pinky a little bit more out. So far so good. Once again, we can add in some variation as well. This finger will be more fanning out. This finger will be more going in towards the middle finger. And then we can go ahead and simplify these into boxes first. And as it gets to the base, it gets longer or it gets wider. And then it also has a little bit of webbing. And then here we have our pinky, which can be separated just a little bit. And there is our other hand. So I actually want to just tweak this just a little bit because I feel like this is a little bit too long of a palm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this. And just redraw it, just adjust the length of it. I think that looks better. I can also shorten the middle finger if needed. I think that looks a bit better, yeah. Here we have our wrist. And then when we add the knuckles are basically around the fingers at the base. If you want, you can also add the carpals. I believe that's what they're called, the carpals or the metacarpals. I don't exactly remember. But they kind of fan, so it's another thing. If you want to draw nails, just make sure that it's not, don't do something like this, where this is your finger and then the whole finger is covered. Don't do that. You want to make sure that when you draw the finger, it's kind of rounded off. And then the fingernail just covers just a little bit of the front. So we can go ahead and add some fingernails to this. So I'm going to zoom in. And of course, there's multiple types of hands out there. Some people have fatter hands, some people have more slimmer hands, some people have very bony hands, but that just depends on how you want your character to be. In fact, that wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of cover that. So here is your standard hand, very slender and very nice. This is kind of like your average, I would say, that in anime, because I feel like a lot of people, when they draw anime, they just like to draw hands like this. Now when it comes to more cartoony kind of hands, more cartoony kind of hands, like for guys, they tend to round out their fingers, so not round out, they tend to thicken up their fingers and kind of make it boxified. So let's say if I draw a, the palm. First, their fingers tend to be very fat and it actually gets very thin at first, and then it fans out into a fat finger. So that's kind of how they would do it. And they also tend to curve it. So if you look at like American cartoons, like I don't know, Johnny Test or other shows that have a guy in it, their hands are generally very boxy, and that's just to show the masculinity of it and the harshness of it. In fact, I think their palms would be also a little bit shorter, but that's generally the way that they draw it. And with girls, it's like, you know, for instance, Disney princesses, although their hands are also their hands are slimmer and more beautiful because they're more delicate. So if I were to draw a Disney hand, let me go ahead and just maybe kind of tilt it a little bit. When it comes to Disney hand, it's very similar to anime hands, especially for girls. Let me go ahead and just zoom in and just do that real quick. They tend to have very, very soft features and almost kind of like squiggly or like very kind of like jiggly. I don't know jiggly if that's a good word. They taper up to the top, and then they kind of have this very delicate, simplified version with no nails whatsoever. You don't have to draw this, but I'm just kind of showing you exactly the difference between the two. But they would basically have a very delicate and very feminine looking hand for the Disney princesses. So that makes a good difference for you guys. That I feel like that definitely helps. So once we have our hands pretty much in check and understanding how the hand works, we can just go ahead and do some poses. So if you want to pull up your your references, go ahead and do that, and I will get started on that. Alright, so I'm starting with the one on the top left, the one where the hand is over her lips, and this will be a relatively simple one. So let's get started with drawing the palm box first, understand where it's facing, and in a way, it's a good chance to kind of have you guys draw some boxes in this direction. And notice how I'm just simplifying everything first. I'm just making sure that everything's kind of flat and just in a good direction before I, kind of make everything more fleshed out. In fact, let me go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see what my work process is like. So here we have one hand. I want to see where the hand is going. So first, what I like to do is I like to kind of map out the index finger and just kind of draw that real quick. And then for the other fingers, I kind of like to kind of just get the general direction. And then for the pinky, I will just also make pretty independent. So I like to separate the index finger and the pinky finger as kind of like independent ones, because these two usually the index finger, sorry, not the index, the middle finger and the ring finger tend to kind of group together. So let's just go ahead and do that. So once you have that all done, you can go ahead and just divide your hand into separate segments for the joints. That was the bad joint there. So I'm going to erase that. There. And doing basic shapes like this, or just basic flat shapes like this, helps a lot when it comes to your proportions and understanding how form works. So dividing this into, or just making this flat, makes it just a lot easier rather than going into form immediately. In fact, instead of separating these two like in the original photo, I'm just going to go ahead and just put these together, just for artistic purposes. Now we can go ahead and erase most of this. Just kind of lightly tap your kneaded eraser on top. Hopefully this isn't too loud on the mic, because we just want to get the basic structure out. In a digital sense, I would just lower the opacity. But anyways, let's go ahead and round these out. Kind of turn these into little cylinders. And since we have everything mapped out, it becomes a lot easier for us. We have I'm just going to indicate the thumb here just to show another side. Here we have some webbed finger going on. We also have a knuckle here, but that's just kind of, I think I'll just add that towards the end. And then here we have the ring finger. Just kind of gently indicate the form of the finger by putting in the joints in a round manner. Here we have the pinky. If you want to add a little bit of the inside or the kind of bits of little detail on the other side of the palm, you can do that. Here we have the other knuckle, and then the last one. Here's the wrist bone. In fact, I'm actually going to make the pinky a little bit more out there. There, I feel like that looks better. If I want to add some fingernails, once again, we can just add it top to the box. Make sure it doesn't cover the whole fingertip. It just covers partial. We can go ahead and erase the little bits here. So that is our first hand. It was pretty quick. Took about a few minutes. Now let's go ahead and draw the male hand right next to it on the right. So once again, this was similar to our previous demo. This is more fanning out. Can kind of guess how high the palm is compared to the middle finger. And then we can go ahead and just add in roughly the skeleton of our hand. Same with our thumb. Notice that there's like a nice little bone here that sticks out. Add that too. Now we can just add in the details or the basic building blocks. So here we have our hand, our fingers. Notice that there's webbing on the image. There's a little bit of the muscle kind of hinting out here. So I'm just going to bump this out and then curve this back in. From the finger, I'm just going to do the same thing for the thumb and just fan that out. Make it more like, you know. So here we have the finger joint and then the fingertip. And what we can do is we can just kind of round these boxes out. Put in the knuckles. Add a little bit of indentation in the webbing of the hands. And then kind of just connect all of these down to the wrist. And that gives a more masculine look into your hands. Same way when we add in our nails. I would say the more you add in, more like different nooks and crannies, such as different joint sizes. As people get older, their joint sizes kind of grow a little bit. So I'm just kind of growing these out just a little bit, just kind of like enlarging it. And then just kind of blocking in our finger joints. And there we have our second hand. Notice how all the process is very, very similar. So here I'm going to the next hand. If I'm going to be doing a more closed hand like this, the same process goes, it's just more constricted. So we can first kind of understand where our hand is in space. Is it kind of tilting back? If it's tilting back, then draw a box that is tilting back. And we have our wrist. Here we have our top muscle of the hand. We can block in our thumb. Here's the thumb muscle. And here is the knuckle that kind of protrudes out. So once we have that, we can go ahead and just draw the rest of the fingers. The fingers can be easily blocked out. So 1, 2. That is our index finger, can be made flat here. And then 1, boom, 2. If you want, you can even divide these into flat little planes, if that makes it easier for you. This one kind of drags out as well. And then one more. So as you can see, I made a closed hand just by overlapping planes together. And I'm going to once again erase just very, very faintly for this hand, especially because it's very complicated. And once again, I'm just going to base off of my original drawing, and I'm just going to refine it. So we have the fingernail, we have the joint, and then here we have a nice wrinkle, which if you add it, shows that you know what you're doing. This one is more like a cylinder here. So if we want to indicate that this is a cylinder, we can go ahead and just add a little bit of roundness to that. And the nail will also show a little bit of the perspective as well. So if you see the nail kind of facing more up, then that means it's kind of like going this way. If you see the nail this way, you know, where you see the top, it's going down. And here we have the base of the finger protruding out, and the top muscle. Here we have the bottom, the base of the finger here. Then we can go ahead and draw in the cylinder. Boom, boom, nail, right there. Same thing on the other side. This is the base of the finger, kind of connecting to our middle finger here. Boom, boom, cylinder, boom, nail. Then the same thing, cylinder facing down, fingernail. And then we have our hand gracefully flowing down. If you want to add some value to this, go ahead and do that. Add some cast shadows if you want, that helps with showing your form. So we have one down here, one down below the ring finger, one below the middle finger, and then you can also add some cast shadows over the hand as well here. You can also add some nice muscle lines here as well, and some nice wrinkles as it kind of like constricts. You can see some wrinkles in the hand. So that is our third hand. Not too bad. It was a little bit challenging, but I think you guys can do it. And then let's do another one, something more I'm not going to do all the same poses. I'm just going to be doing some. Let's do the more complicated one with the hand kind of going like this. So I think it's the finger. It's the bottom. It's the second row. I think you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, once you see it, you'll know. So once again, we're going to start off the same way. We can see that the hand looks like it's going this way. So once again, fanning, fanning, straight, straight. This is the wrist. Pretty easy, isn't it? Then we can group these. So we have our pinky muscle, then our thumb muscle, and then we can once again just group our fingers together, like so. And then we have our index finger going out, and then our thumb hiding behind. So when, there's a little bit of a story, but when Will Weston taught us how to, he does online classes nowadays, but anyways, he would always say flat and then go to form, because that's actually a lot easier to digest in terms of information. So, you know, before I used to teach like, oh, we'll just draw the cylinders and all that stuff. Yeah, you could do that. It's not wrong to do that. I just find this way a lot easier now, and I want you guys to know about it. So once we have the fingers, we can just block in where they are. That's really simple, isn't it? So now we can just go ahead and erase most of this. Just not get confused with the darker lines that I'm going to add in later. We can just refine it. So here we have our thumb muscle and then our pinky muscle, and they kind of constrict, so you can add some folds to that, but you don't have to. You can add also some nice little detailed lines that show the form as well. Here's the knuckle of the pinky. And here is the pinky itself. Here is the ring finger curling downward. Here is the knuckle. Here are the joints. Here is the middle finger. There are the nails. And here is the thumb. And then for the index finger, here's the knuckle. And then it gradually just spews out right there. Not gradually, just kind of just points out. So you guys can also draw a backhand hand kind of going backwards as well. So that is your hand here. So I think that'll be it for drawing hands. Let me know what you guys think. Show me if this is actually a lot easier for you guys to digest. And yeah, anyways, that'll be it for this video. I will actually do feet in a different video, in a different section, rather than just hands and feet in the same video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.